All right. So have you ever, like, just had that feeling,
Yeah.
Like you just know what's about to happen?
Huh. Yeah, yeah, like a gut feeling or something like that.
Exactly. Like intuition. And get this, we're going to dive into some research today, right? And it basically says that that feeling might not be all in your head.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, we're talking like the possibility of actually sensing information from the future.
From the future.
Yeah, but, and here's the catch, there's this idea of time signal interference.
Time signal interference.
Yeah, and it might be like blocking us from really tapping into that potential, sensing the future.
That's really interesting. Okay, well, I'm ready to dive in. Let's do it.
Perfect. Well, then let's get right into it.
Yeah.
So the source for this deep dive is really fascinating. It's all about like the idea that time is a frequency.
Time is a frequency.
Yeah, and that's something that physicists and philosophers have actually been exploring for quite a while. And so the source is basically saying that accessing future information is kind of like, when you tune into a radio station. It's like tuning into a specific frequency.
Okay, I get that, yeah.
But the thing is, there could be interference, like static on the radio, and that can distort the signal. And that makes the future all blurry or even impossible to see.
Ah, so like interference basically messes with our ability to clearly see the future.
Yeah, exactly. So then the big question is, what is this time signal interference?
Right. Is this like a real scientific term or something?
No, not really. It's more like a concept that the source came up with, to kind of explain why predicting the future is so hard. And they say that there are all these different factors that contribute to this interference. And get this, some of them are actually connected to natural phenomena.
Natural phenomena.
Really? Okay, like what?
Okay, so get this, like solar activity and the Schumann resonance.
Okay, now Schumann resonance, that sounds familiar. That's
Yeah.
the one that has to do with Earth's magnetic field, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So it's like a set of frequencies that are created by lightning,
Oh, wow.
within Earth's atmosphere, and it resonates all around the planet.
Huh. So it's like a constant hum that surrounds us.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah, like a hum. And what the source is saying is that when this hum is like quiet and stable, we might actually have less interference.
Less interference.
Yeah. So a clearer view of the future.
Oh, okay.
And get this calmer state with the Schumann resonance seems to like happen at the same time as heightened cosmic ray activity.
Cosmic rays. So just to be sure I've got this right. Cosmic rays, those are the particles that are like shooting at us from space, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay, so how do those tie into all of this? I'm a little lost.
It gets pretty complex here, but the source basically proposes that there's like a connection between these cosmic rays, the Schumann resonance, and how well we can sense future information. And this is where they start talking about biostress.
Biostress. Is that like stress, but like on a global level? You got it. It's like the collective stress levels,
Yeah.
Of everyone on the planet.
Okay.
And they say that when biostress is high, it's like turning up the static on that radio signal, right? So all that global stress, it amplifies that time signal interference.
Okay.
But then when there's those periods of global peace and harmony, when everybody's just chilling it,
Right.
the source claims that the interference lessens, like turning down the static. And then suddenly, boom, future information's a lot more accessible.
Wow. So what are they saying, that if we all just kind of chilled out, we could all predict the future?
Well, maybe not quite like that, but the source actually provides this really cool chart, and it's called the biostress level indicators, and it kind of illustrates how this all works.
Oh, interesting.
It tracks things like the Schumann resonance levels, the solar wind speed. There are these things called 2 MeV readings, and then geophone activity.
Okay. Some of that's a bit over my head, to be honest.
Yeah, no, totally fair.
Could we maybe break that down a little bit more?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so think of it like a car's dashboard, right? You got all those different gauges, and each one needs to be in the green for everything to run smoothly.
Gotcha.
Okay, so a quiet Schumann resonance means that, remember that earth hum we were talking about?
Yeah.
That means it's nice and stable.
Okay.
And then there's solar wind speed. That's like measuring how fast all those particles from the sun are streaming towards us. And that needs to be below 450 kilometers per second.
Got it.
Geophones measure vibrations in the Earth's crust. So, like, less activity there is good, means things are stable.
Right, yeah, okay.
And now those 2 MeV readings, those are the ones that might sound a bit confusing. They actually refer to, like, the energy levels of cosmic rays,
Okay.
but specifically ones that have 2 mega electron volts of energy.
Okay, so lower 2 MeV readings are good, right? What happens when those readings get really high?
Yeah, great question. So the source links higher 2 MeV readings to more earthquakes. Yeah. So it starts getting into some really complicated physics at this point, but basically, they think that these high-energy particles from space, right, these cosmic rays, they might actually disrupt the Earth's energy fields.
Hmm.
And when those fields are disrupted, it leads to, like, instability, and that could trigger earthquakes. And they even talk about this thing called entanglement.
Entanglement?
Yeah, that's where particles are, like, connected to each other no matter how far apart they are.
Oh, wow.
And the source is suggesting that this 2 MeV proton beam could be influenced by events that are happening, like, really far away.
Okay, so we've got entanglement, earthquakes, cosmic rays. This is starting to feel like an episode of The Twilight Zone.
Well, funny you should say that, because remember how I said there was a Twilight Zone connection to all of this?
Right. You did say that. Okay, remind me.
Okay, so the source talks about this episode. It's called No Time Like the Past. And in it, there's this scientist who's trying to travel through time.
Okay.
But his team has to watch out for what they call interference before he can travel safely.
Oh, so this interference is like the time signal interference we're talking about.
Exactly.
Right.
But it makes you think, right? Like, could those moments in the episode where the time travel is all clear, could those be the same as those periods of low biostress, where the time signal interference is minimal, just like the source is describing?
Whoa. That's pretty wild to think about. So, okay, we've got this time signal interference, this biostress, but the source also talks about some patterns in the real world, right? Like a 3-day correlation or something.
You got it. So remember those key indicators we talked about? So that was solar wind speed, the Schumann resonance, and the geophone activity.
Right, yeah.
So the source says that when all three of those things are like in that sweet spot, that green zone on our dashboard for 3 days in a row, they claim that there's a huge shift globally.
Yeah.
Way less anxiety, more peace, more harmony. And they think that during these windows, our intuition might actually be way stronger. Yeah, and that maybe, just maybe, we could access future information more reliably.
So wait, they're saying that everyone's intuition gets stronger at the same time, globally. That's a pretty big claim.
It is. And it kind of makes you wonder, right, is there really something to those moments where you just know something's going to happen?
It really does make you think. And it gets even like more interesting when you start thinking of other species, right? The source briefly mentions elephants.
Elephants?
Yeah, and they were saying that elephants seem to react to changes in geophysical properties, the same stuff we've been talking about.
Wait, so you mean those elephants are picking up on those times when there's low interference? Like their intuition is going crazy?
It's possible. I mean, the source doesn't go into too much detail about it, but it does leave you wondering, could these same forces be messing with human perception too?
Maybe even more than we realize, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, what if we're all just walking around tuning into the future without even knowing it?
I love it. This has been a really wild deep dive.
It really has.
We've gone from this idea of time signal interference, something that's basically blocking our ability to see the future,
Yeah.
to like all these natural forces and how our collective stress levels could actually be affecting things.
And don't forget those elephants. Maybe they're the ones who've got it all figured out. Who knows?
Who knows, right? But it leaves us with a really big question. If we actually could predict the future, would we even want to? What would that mean for the choices we make, Would we even have free will?
That's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that one. Something to ponder, I guess.
Definitely something to think about.